on my blog, and we are focusing today on the race for the 4th and 2nd congressional districts. We've had the Republican challengers on, and now the incumbents, the Democrats. First, Congressman Joe Courtney. Congressman Courtney, nice to see you back here again.
Good to be here, Dennis.
I want to ask you, first of all, because your colleague, Jim Himes, is favoring an extension of the Bush tax cuts. How do you feel about that?
I part ways with Jim. I think that an extension of the tax cuts for 97% of America's taxpayers, particularly the middle class, is certainly important to keep the economy moving in a positive direction. But the cost to the deficit to raising or to extending those tax cuts for income above $250,000, again, 100% of Americans will get tax cuts up to $250,000 of income, but beyond that point, the cost to the deficit is about $700 billion over the next 10 years. I think for people who care about the long-term structure of our public finances as a nation, which bond markets and world financial markets are watching closely, that's too high a price to pay.
You're running this year against a political newcomer who's been making a lot of hay. She's widely known because she was on television for many, many years. Do you think Janet Peckinpah is qualified to be a member of Congress?
You know, certainly the Republican Party nominated her, and I know, having run a couple times as a challenger, I mean, this is not for the faint of heart. She's run, obviously, an impressive campaign to, in a short period of time, win the nomination, and I look forward to the debates, and you know, that will be the test for the voters.
Do you think she's politicizing the sub-base issue? I know that your campaign's been very critical of her, calling into question her qualifications.
Well, I think the comments that she made, frankly, are a concern because, on the one hand, in 2005, when Connecticut dodged the bullet, I mean, it was clear we are in a competition with the state of Georgia. They want our submarine fleet. I mean, there was no, they made no bones about that in 2005. And so the need to modernize that base, get some of the old structures down, create more space, modernize the facilities, was obvious from the first day I walked into office, and as a member of the Readiness Subcommittee, we've directed over $80 million of improvements to that base. Her answer to you that she was not sure or would possibly oppose that type of funding because it came from an individual member of Congress. I mean, frankly, the people in Kings Bay, Georgia, they would be celebrating to have a congressman from Eastern Connecticut taking that approach. It is a competition, and we need to have a representative who understands that the future of this base down the road will depend on whether or not we bring it up to the highest standards for the 21st century. And my office, I think, has a very strong record to show that we have been on top of that issue, and those improvements are happening right now as we sit here.
Do you have any votes that you regret at all?
That's a good question.
If you had to do them over, is there anything you'd vote differently on?
There are. I mean, I have to say, I don't have a list right with me because you're kind of always looking forward here, but there's no question that, you know, in terms of education policy, you know, we really do need to get this country sort of moving again, and the failure of the Education and Labor Committee to move that issue, which is really something that I think is really important, has been a real frustration to me. I mean, we've had lots of hearings, and there's been some attempts to sort of move that issue, but frankly, not moving that forward and fixing No Child Left Behind is frankly one of the reasons why I'm running again.
Let's talk about the stimulus and health care. If
Sure.
you had to do it over again, would you have supported them?
There's no question that the Recovery Act, the stimulus bill, is something that I think was critical to avoiding a much more catastrophic unemployment picture. I mean, you can go from Groton to Enfield and see Recovery Act infrastructure projects that are underway, school districts that would have been devastated in 2009 with teacher layoffs. You know, again, I would draw a sharp distinction between that measure and the TARP bill, the Wall Street bailout, which, as you know, I was the only member of Congress from Connecticut to vote against it. I stand by that vote. I think, you know, the test of time in terms of whether or not the Goldman Sachs are really contributing to an economic recovery has shown that the TARP bill really did not materialize with benefits for people. And as far as the health care bill is concerned, I mean, this week we've seen Medicare Advantage premiums cut by 1%. Last year it went up 10%. So the health care bill gave the government a better position to negotiate with insurance companies, and seniors will benefit from that. The donut hole is going to close for those folks who are paying out of pocket for prescription drugs. And we are now seeing improvements to family coverage so the kids up to age 26 can stay on their parents' health insurance plan. That is really meaningful change that's helping thousands and thousands of Americans.
Part of the stimulus plan that was criticized by some reporters was $43 million to the Mohegan Sun. And just a few weeks ago, they laid off people. How do you feel about that?
Well, again, remember, it's a $43 million loan through the USDA. It is not a grant. Mohegan's going to have to pay back every penny of that with interest. And it's for a construction project that will probably employ about 1,300 building trades people. If you look at the economy of Connecticut, the building trades are the hardest hit sector, over 25% unemployment there. And getting them back to work, I think, is going to help a lot of families, working families, particularly in eastern Connecticut. The layoff was on the casino, the operational side of the casino, and obviously they've taken a hit, like a lot of other of our tourism and restaurant businesses. And those families will get all the help they can from my office, and trying to get this economy moving again is the best way to make sure that they can get rehired.
The casinos, of course, are big business in your district.
Sure.
Massachusetts, no doubt, will try to resurrect their casino battle next year. If they get casino gambling in Massachusetts, it will hurt the two casinos here. What should the state do? What could you do?
Well, I think that really the one benefit or advantage Connecticut has is these facilities that we have, both Foxwoods and Mohegan. I don't think any new enterprise is ever going to dare try and take on that large an investment. So I still think, as a destination spot, Mohegan and Foxwoods will surpass anything that's in the region. But
and they won't suffer at all?
Well, I think it's going to be a much more challenging environment, but certainly what Connecticut can do is get in the business of promoting this state. I mean, we have really, I think, gone backwards in terms of promoting tourism. And in southeastern Connecticut with Mystic Seaport, the aquarium, the casinos, we've got a real gem there. And on my trade missions, when I went over to Europe and the Middle East, that was a big piece of our trade mission, was to promote Connecticut abroad so that we could get foreign tourism. This
is a tough year for Democrats, as you know. The president is becoming increasingly unpopular in your district. I believe he's down to a 42% approval rate. Pelosi, one of the least popular politicians, according to the national polls. Would you endorse Mrs. Pelosi for another term as your speaker? Well,
I'll tell you, if the choice is between her and John Boehner, who wants to privatize Social Security, means test the program, extend the Bush tax cuts, I mean, that's nothing new in terms of a new Republican Party. Those are the policies of the Bush years, which, in my opinion, drove this country into a ditch. So that's an easy choice between Pelosi versus Boehner.
Well, obviously, you wouldn't vote for Republican, but is she the best Democrat to be Speaker of the House?
Well, I mean, look, there's obviously there's an election that has to take place. There'll be caucuses that will take place. And, I mean, at this point, there really is no opposition that's materialized. So
has she done a good job?
That is the most thankless job in America. I mean, if you look at the string of speakers which have taken place in the last modern era, I mean, the fact is that it's a no-win situation for almost anyone who's been there.
Has she been good for Connecticut?
Certainly, in terms of my efforts to get submarine construction, investment in the sub-base, in terms of education dollars to UConn, certainly I've felt very much that I've had the freedom to operate as an advocate for Eastern Connecticut, and she has never gotten in the way of achieving those goals.
Is your district better off today than it was 2 years ago?
There are bright spots in the district. I mean, Electric Boat buying the Pfizer building, 700,000 square foot structure, did not happen in a vacuum. They are hiring. They have hired more people in this year than they did 2 years ago on the design side and the engineering side. The ripple effect that has in terms of the supply chain into Electric Boat is definitely brighter than it was 2 years ago. There are other parts of the district that are struggling. I definitely think the foreclosure and housing market really needs a lot of help. But frankly, let's not forget that downward spiral started before the new administration. I mean, this recession began in 2007 with the Bush policies that were in place, and that's what I think we're still feeling the effects of.
Does the president hurt you or help you this time
I would welcome
a lot of people are against.
I would welcome him to come to the Navy base. We had the USS Missouri christening, and Secretary Gates came with his wife, and we tried to sort of wave the flag for the White House, saying, come on by and see the great 8,000 strong sailors that we've got down in Groton. And I would welcome a visit to Groton, to the Coast Guard Academy,
Wyndham,
University of Connecticut,
Wyndham County, where it's 10% unemployment.
University of Connecticut. I mean, I think it would be an exciting visit for Eastern Connecticut.
Congressman Joe Courtney.